You know, one of the things that interests me is when people say that if Tinubu is disqualified by the court and he refuses to leave the presidential office, what will happen? Before I give you the full details on what will happen, I would like to take you back to the constitution, and after we go to the constitution, then I will now tell you what will truly happen. Hear the news in details. In case this is your first time coming across the future news, please subscribe. And our subscribers, we do not take it for granted. Thank you for supporting the future news. Like and share our video. Now, what does the constitution says about disqualification? We have chapter 6, part 1, section 137 of disqualification of Constitution of Nigeria. Number 1 states that a person shall not be qualified for election to the office of the president if is subject to the provisions of section 28 of this constitution, he has voluntarily acquired the citizenship of a country other than Nigeria, or except in such cases as may be prescribed by a National Assembly, he has made a declaration of allegiance to such other country. Now, this is number 1. This is where the constitution stands. It states that a person shall not what? Shall not be qualified for election if the person has voluntarily acquired the citizenship of a country other than Nigeria, which Tinubu has a mark in this one. He acquired a citizenship of Guinea. He acquired a citizenship of Guinea, which alone makes him not to be qualified to be the president of Nigeria. After stating this, I'm going to get you to that question we asked from the beginning. Number 2, if he has been elected to such office at any 2 previous election or under the law in any part of Nigeria, he is adjudged to be a lunatic or otherwise declared to be of unsound mind. This is number 2. Tinubu has unsound mind. We have seen different cases where Tinubu, national anthem was being sung, he raised his staff. We saw him where he was testing the mic. Several cases, Tinubu has an unsound mind. This is number 2, why he's not qualified to be the president of Nigeria. Number 3, if he's under a sentence of death imposed by any competent court or law or tribunal in Nigeria, or a sentence of imprisonment or fine for any offense involving dishonesty or fraud. So I really laugh when people come out and say Tinubu cannot be disqualified, or if Tinubu is disqualified, he won't leave office. They said what? If he's under a sentence of death imposed over or involving dishonesty or fraud by whatever name called, or for any other offense imposed on him by any court or tribunal, or substituted by a competent authority for any other sentence imposed on him by such a court or tribunal. We've seen the cases of fraud. We've seen the cases of fraud on Tinubu's case. This alone is a clarification because the law has its place. Let's stop dodging the law and trying to be emotional. Because one thing with so many Nigerians is that they don't know the law. They just come out and begin to make noise and say Tinubu must be there, Tinubu has to be there, Tinubu will be there, and all that noise they make. But one of the most important thing here is that Tinubu remains a man who is not qualified to be the president of Nigeria. Tinubu was dishonest. He lied under oath. This is another thing that will be used against him, of course, if not that have used against him. Now, if he is an undischarged bankrupt, having been adjudged or otherwise declared bankrupt under any law in force in Nigeria or any other country, we saw the forfeiture of Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the US soil. Over $460,000 was forfeited by Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Why is Tinubu qualified to be the president of Nigeria? Before I go on and on, there are a lot of things that should be considered. But now let me answer this very question that I asked from the beginning. What will happen if Bola Ahmed Tinubu refuses to unseat as the president of Nigeria after being disqualified by the court? Now, number one is that if eventually Tinubu refuses to unseat himself and respect himself and leave the presidential office, one is that the loyalty of the DSS, EFCC, the military, the police, and every other force you know in Nigeria belongs to the office of the president, not the person. Are you getting my point? It belongs to the office of the president, not the person in the office. So, is the person that is in the office that now, okay, it's more like your children respect. What should I use now that will clarify this whole thing in a layman's language? Okay, just like the army barrack. Hmm? They said when you go and come back, barrack will remain. So it's just like anything about the military revolves around the army barrack. So even as a soldier, if you live there and come back, army barrack will remain army barrack. Are you getting me? So the office of the president, even though is a 20-year-old that just come there and sat down, the loyalty of the military instantly focuses on that 20-year-old, and that is where the law stands. So if the court should immediately declare Peter Obi the president of Nigeria, immediately the glory of the office of the president falls on him and it is withdrawn from Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So nobody will be taking orders. So if you're president and nobody is taking orders from you, you are just making noise. That's number one. If you're a president, you are not being respected by the military, the EFCC, the DSS, and everybody. You are just making noise. That's number one. Because it is obvious, immediately the time of Buhari came, he left the office of the president. Now nobody is addressing him as Mr. President. They're not addressing him as the ex-president. He doesn't have any power to come and tell Nigerians what to do because he's no longer the one in position. That's number one. Number two is that if he eventually refuses to leave that seat of the president, he will be disgraced out. It's going to be one of the most shameful. It's going to go down the history that Bola Ahmed Tinubu was disgraced out of the presidential seat because he refused to come down. Because before you know it, the military will ask him to leave, and if he doesn't leave, he will be handcuffed. The media will be there, and they will throw him to jail for number one, treasonry. Are you getting me? Number one is going to be treason for you to disrespect the office of the president. Because if a new man is there and you want to, is more like you want to take over forcefully, and anybody that wants to take over a nation forcefully is seen as treason. So that is what will eventually lead him to jail. Number three is that if he eventually refuses to sit down, of course, the opposition party, which is the Labour Party, will rise against him, both internationally, locally, and everywhere. So I hope you understand what we just explained to you. The law has its stand, and Tinubu will be disqualified, and nothing will happen. Thank you for supporting the Future News. Peace.